Hey, welcome back to Made Up of Wires, where we're decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and as usual, the graphs aren't loaded, but there they are. We've been working on the clock tower, and I was consolidating all of the changes that have been done so far, and there's quite a few that I haven't submitted back yet. Trying to get them ready for PR to get them merged back in so that our... Oh, they're the... Goodbye, graphs. So that... we can see the progress that's been made so far. And I noticed that I couldn't get the door entity to match on the PSP. So I think I'm going to see what's going on there and try to determine whether or not more changes are necessary, if there's something that I didn't do. It matches on the PlayStation. I'm trying to get the PlayStation and the PSP merged together. I think this must be something with soten.z.dev and not my browser. I mean, it may be a Safari issue, some interaction with Safari, but it seems odd that this would change over time. I should look at the events there and maybe debug that at some point too. I'm not Z. Zinamo is the person who made the project and operates this website. I'm just a contributor. So let me show you what is going on, and then we'll get into it. So we have boss doors. We worked on this several weeks ago, and entity boss doors was one of the functions that has been completed for the PlayStation, and I thought that it was a match on the PSP as well. But when I just do the copy pasta, let's make sure that this is all building fine first. There may be two files that I need to replace. Something's going on with symbol cleaning, and these maybe I need to update my dependencies. I don't know, but those two files always seem to have issues. Just making sure that I have a clean build before making any changes. And that looks fine. So what I think I should be able to do, if this was a match on the PSP, is take the function from the PlayStation version, move it up to the PSP version, and make, but obviously there is a problem there. Diff stage, I don't think had anything too obvious. Maybe it's a little obvious. If this is where the code is, I'm not sure that it is, but if this is where the code is, there's some 16-byte offset. It's more probable that there's an additional 16 bytes being added somewhere that I need to, so 4 instructions that I need to figure out where those are. So something's happening to shift the code around. And let's see what that might be. So we're going to go back to decomp.me. I'm going to see if I have scratches for these. I must have a scratch for the PlayStation one, and maybe I just never did the PSP. I don't know. So this was entity background gears, which we were working on yesterday. Let's look for entity boss door. We do have scratches for both. It does look like possibly Josh is a little closer on a PSP version. And let's see what was wrong with our PSP version. So we have well, let's fix that. There we go. A different symbol. The symbols have been fixed, and so they should all match. Symbol issues. And that's all. So this one looks like it is a match. Let's take the PlayStation version I have and see if that one is equivalent. Oh no, give me 1 second. My copy script is not working. Sometimes that just requires logging in again, and that's all it was. So let's see. So first we get an error, and the error is because we replaced the intense explosion macro. Let's see what it was going to be. It was going to be 6. So we'll define that. And we still have the same difference. So there may be something else. I didn't check, and I should have done this, and check if there's any obvious compilation errors. So let's do that. Nothing's coming up. And so everything is looking good here. So I'm not sure what the ultimate cause is. What I am going to do is make a new scratch with the updated disassembly that has all of the correct, or should have all the correct symbols in it. And this is entity boss doors. It could have to do with I didn't think about the jump table for the switch. That may be something to look at. So we'll have to look at the RO data and see if there's anything going on there. So I'm going to copy this again. And now we're at 60 because we have more symbols that are matching. And so I mapped all these to the PlayStation names. We're never going to get these symbols to match, so that's fine. GAPI likewise. We do have something down here on line 72 that is not matching that I would think would otherwise match. So I thought that this symbol was mapped. So we have our 113 symbol here, and it's possible that I got this wrong. Let's look at what that data looks like in eBoss doors. It's possible that I missed some data in the PlayStation version. We have this unused data that doesn't show up in the PSP version, and so it may be related to that. And this is saying that we have another global here at 37C8, which is immediately after this. So yeah, it looks like that there's data that either I missed, which is most likely, and then we have to figure out what to do about that. The PlayStation didn't. Oh, let's see if we can figure this out. So I'm gonna look at what's next. So the next set of data is at C2C148. And does this look like the next set of data? It does. So this data should be here as well as part of this. And let's see if this still... We need to give it the right name. But let's see if this builds. And it is going to be used now. I will have to get rid of this. They include ASM backend. And I touched the splat config because I need the C file to regenerate the updated assembly. And yeah, so it looks like that's what's going on. So in the version that we have here on line 72, we're referencing the same door tile map in both case 3 and case 4, but that's not the same in the PSP. In the PSP, we're actually referencing this next one, and that seems like it's a bug from the original version of the game. So we're gonna use it's not common that we use the PSP version when compiling for the PlayStation, but the PlayStation version doesn't use this variable, this global, so we're safe to use it, and it won't even get stripped out of the code. We do need to take unused. I'm going to make a comment here. Hey, roaming. All right, so now we have our array, and we have it named appropriately. So we'll go back down to 74 and set the PSP version to the right thing. And then I'm just going to check these other symbols to make sure. We should have, based on this, we should have 5 sets of symbols, so 10 lines total, that are different. So we have this pair here, so that's 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that looks better. So let's grab that, and this should continue to work on both sides, but we're going to try it on the PSP version first. So even though usually we don't have to worry about, yeah, that worked, the symbols not matching, and everything eventually works itself out, but in this case it didn't. And it's not, I wouldn't change how I'd go about this at all. It's just something to note. So now we should have no difference, or very little or trivial differences between the PSP version and the PlayStation 1 version, and if that's the case, then we can get rid of the file for the PlayStation 1 version. So, what are the differences here? A note to give roaming all the credit. So I think that this may be fine. It looks like some unused variables around line 10. Some reformatting. It looks like actually a pretty significant difference in how the entity is calculated around line 29. So there are some things that need to be fixed. These look like white space. I'm not sure what's going on there because those lines look identical. I don't have a white space filter on the diff. So let's fix those. Around line 45, we have entity self plus 2. And so we should be able to, what I want to do is just make sure that these continue to work. That's replacing this line here. And in this case, the PSP version is going to be the more accurate one. So let's take the whole PSP file and we'll just replace everything on the PlayStation and make sure that we still build. And yeah, that worked fine. Okay, so we can get rid of the PSP file now. Make sure it builds. And then get rid of the file. We should find the ebossdoors.o in build, just to be extra sure. It's .c.o. And let's just be able to delete all of those, and we should rebuild everything. And yep, that all still works. Great. That file's gone, and let's put all that in place. I see. The equals 1 was moved to a different... That's the issue, is the ordering. I could put an unused macro and limit it to just the PSP version, but I don't think that is necessary. I did lose my comment along the way. But that's okay. Anything else we need to do there? No, we need to find something new to work on. So the water effects are unique. Room exit, that's interesting. I wonder if it's related to the Karsuman fight. Red door is a little different. It doesn't match with the others. There's at least one global variable that is part of the Karsuman fight. I wonder why bottom corner text doesn't work. Anything else worth looking at? Maybe Phantom Skull. There might be something interesting there, especially with the transparency. I like that. So we have two functions there. And let's start with the skull, and then we'll move on. So the Phantom Skull is, I believe, the big skull, right? And it doesn't do much. So there's going to be likely some tracking code, like where am I in relation to the player? So what direction should I move and what's my velocity? So there's some things with acceleration and deceleration, which is also acceleration, that are in there. And then the death animation is pretty involved, but may just be sprites, but maybe particles as well. And it may just be explosion. I don't remember specifically. We could go kill some and see. All right, so we're gonna look at STNZ1, non-matchings, E, Phantom Skull. And because these haven't shown up before, there's probably going to be some data mapping here that needs to change as well. So I'm gonna close these. And we'll start anew. Start fresh. Likely there's going to be an entity extension here that we need to add. Some globals to figure out what they are. And get angles between entities. So let's get this to compile, and then we'll see what additional work needs to be done. Animate entity, that's going to be a unsigned 8 array. And here we don't know. This is being multiplied by 2. So it's probably a signed 16. M2C tends to choose the unsigned variants. I'm going to go with a signed variant until we know better. We could look at the data to determine what it is. This is probably going to be our GINIT, yeah, or EINIT. So I'm going to make this a signed 16 for now, and it's going to be an array as well. And that should get us, so we're compiling now. 40. This is going to be just an index into this array. So we can get rid of most of this. The stride is 2, which is where the multiply by 2 comes from. And we're at 84%, but let's go look at this and see what we might be looking at. So first we need to determine whether or not where this data is mapped, and we may or may not have to update some of the mappings and assign the range for this data to the E Phantom Skull segment. It's unlikely, like I said, because this is a new entity type that we haven't seen before, unlikely that the data would be mapped correctly yet. So I'm going to open up the splat config as well and start working on that. So the first one we're looking for is 134, which is here. So we're going to assume that this 2134 is where this is starting, and then 2158 is where it's ending. I don't know that for certain, but that's going to be my my first stab at it, and we'll get closer as we know more. We could get some additional hints from the surrounding segments. And this is going to end it. Right now we think 2160, but we don't know for sure. Let's look at that 2160 and see if we can tell whether or not anything else is using it that we care about. And that's used by entity flailguard, so it's not anything. So this is all the data. We could look at 114 just to be certain. But that looks like it's Vandal Sword. So we know that this is our data. And this is pretty simple. We could probably move it in. But I'm not going to worry about that now. We have a pretty large collection of bytes that we need to pull in, and then just 4 shorts. You can't tell whether these shorts are signed or unsigned just based on the data. We'll have to look at how they're used. And even based on the way they're used, we may not be able to figure that out, but I think we're at a good starting point. There's a few other things, this G entities. Let's get rid of that. So this is an index, and we're going to be going all the way to 256 for this. So we're looking for entities within a particular range. I do want to change the arg name to self. And let's see if we get rid of all those. So we have at least one more place that this G entities 224 is being used. And so we're done with that one. So G entities comes up here as the pointer to the beginning of the table, but we have a macro called player, which also points to the first entity, and this is more descriptive about what's going on. And so we can start thinking about what our entity extension is going to look like. There is going to be a unique entity extension here. The first field is going to be the angle between the player and our skull, minus 128. That may be in rotational units. Rotational units are 2012 fixed numbers, where 1 there is 360 degrees. Unclear what offset 6 is yet, but we'll deal with those in a bit. Sound will rely on the linter to give us the correct sound name. Let's change these entity variables to be the same thing. We'll call that entity. Line 37 is a bad parameter. I do not know what you are referring. Oh, random. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, that's... Hey, Ansh, good to have you. Looking. So these, oh yes, thank you. That's what you mean by that. Same thing. Instead of G entities, we want the player macro again. And so if you look at the definition of player, come on, I can spell. It is just to give us something nicer. So G entities at the player character index. What's the player character index? 0, which is the same as using the G entities label directly. But this is much clearer when we say that what's the difference between you and the player, as opposed to what's the angle between the current entity that's being worked on and this array of other things. So that's why we do that. Get angle between entities shifted. Yes, it should. That is actually a really good call out. Should it take 2 args? Let's look. So we need, what I don't understand though is why did M2C miss it here? So let's look at the assembly here. We have something going into A0, which is the S0 var, and we're going to see at the very beginning, S0 is A0. A0 is the first arg to this function, so we're taking the arg to this function and putting the S0 register, and then using S0 throughout. So arg0 is self, but that means when we're up here, here, we already have something in A0, and that was the arg. It was never overwritten. Down here, we probably use the A0 register in the meantime, so we need to restore that value to A0. And then what's in register A1? We're going to put this player's thing. So let's go back up to this one and see, do we have the same thing? So we're actually putting this into the first arg. So what is in the second arg? Will we put anything into A1? We did in the branch delay slot. Weird. So this is inverted. So good call out. Yeah. When we don't have, or when we're not using function signatures, things like that become less obvious. And typically we're not using function signatures. Thanks, Roaming. Appreciate it. All right. I think a lot of this is going to be creating our entity extension. So I think I'm going to start getting into that. There's a few things here, like this is going to be a minus minus. There's probably some ordering. I don't think any of these small things are going to change anything. This is going to be a plus plus. Interesting. So this is going to be a plus plus, probably inline. And it's going to be a pre-increment. And I think we can write this greater than 4. Probably not a variable here. And so the one hint that this should be used as a signed is the cast to signed. And most likely this is signed as well. So we'll have to go through and make sure that that is the case. My home row is broken today. Apparently. This is something that I haven't explored too much, but there are cases that we'll see like this where the value for temp v1 underscore 2 is pulled up quite a ways from this value, and instructions in MIPS execute every clock tick, but that doesn't, when an instruction has finished executing, it doesn't mean necessarily that the data is available in the register that's being assigned. And I think that's why M2C gets confused about things like this, is that GCC did generate this in a way that pulled this value early from memory, but that's something that the compiler did, not something that we necessarily would write, or not the way that we would write it. I'm guessing that these are all signed, and this looks like a plus equals or a minus equals. We'll see how it turns out. All right, so let's start building our entity extension and see what we have. I'm going to have to consolidate all of the types. Actually, before we do that, we can see if we can get rid of some variables. I'm guessing most of these, many of them can go away. I'm going to do this the same way that I did the other one and just do it inline. So when you're defining a struct, you can put what are called anonymous structs directly inline and nest them inside of another struct. And so this struct has no name. I could give it a name, but I'm not going to. And we're just going to give the field a name, and we're going to call it Phantom Skull. I'm not going to prefix it with ET. I'll just call it Phantom Skull. And what is going to be in the Phantom Skull? It looks like we have a, my guess is a sine 16 at offset 0, and this is going to be the player angle. And I'll keep offsets in here. And so everywhere we see this entity extension illegal, this was a great idea by whoever came up with it, because it does give you some basic type information, but at the same time doesn't makes it extremely obvious. We used to have a generic entity extension at the very beginning, and everything used it if those fields fit. And somebody kind of painstakingly went through and built all of the necessary structs. So a lot of hard work from a lot of contributors. So that's going to be Phantom Skull, and we call this player angle. I'm going to make this a regular expression because I want to match both the unsigned and signed versions. I'm going to put slashes here to match literal dots, even though nothing else is really going to have this form. All right, so we got the first one done. 8 bytes in, we have some kind of flag. Let's look at that and see what it might be. So it does just look like a basic bool. So we'll keep that one as a unsigned. We don't know what's at 8.0 yet, so we'll put 32 bits of padding, and at 8.4 we'll have our unsigned 8. And what do we think it does? So we initialize it to false. If it almost looks like maybe the direction. So entities do have a facing direction, but this is like the what direction the player is facing, maybe. or what direction we're going to travel. I'm going to call it direction for now, and we can since it's a bool, let's say we have facing left. We'll call this traveling left, or target left. Target is left. Let's try that. So we're phantom skull, target is left. And again, if we have to change that, that's fine. So we do have a entity, we do have another sine 32, probably a sine 32. I am going to guess that this is velocity. So this 32, 1. As a fixed, it would be 1.5. Set entity velocity from angle. Oh, but we're shifting it over by 12 and not 16. So that makes it look more like a float, what we call a float, the PlayStation fixed format. So this would be a velocity of 18. So we'll call it velocity. It's a little odd because there already is a velocity field. And I'm going to make it assigned. And if we have to change it, we'll change it. We do have other skulls, and so it might be worth looking at those. Maybe these fields are the same. So this offset 6 then looks like it's an acceleration. So how many shorts do we get for index 6? So we have 2, 6, 7, so our offset 6 would be right here at 8, 6. I think I have that right. And if not, we'll fix it. And how many more illegals do we have? So we do have one at offset 9, which is looks like a timer. Oh, I forgot space after the first sine 16, did I? Oh, you're right. I did, you're right. So let's add that space back. So we're at 7E here. Thank you, Roaming. Appreciate it. I do want to, while we're looking at this, let's see if We don't have the other skulls here. Wouldn't we have skulls? The smaller skulls? Do those... Is the clock tower the first time we see those? Maybe? Yeah, maybe. Alright, so this offset 9. We have space for that. It looks like it's a timer, so I'm going to call it timer. Original. Alright, so we might have some offset issues. It looks like there's some masking, which probably tells me that the type was wrong. A reference to entities very early that we're missing, which might suggest that we're pulling the player entity out early. My guess is that's the case. And yeah, there is some offset issues. So let's fix those. Acceleration should be at 8.8, but it's at 8.6. So we do need another 16 bits here. Assuming that I... didn't screw something up. Roaming says the first function call parameters are backwards. I don't think they are. Because self is going to be in the arg0 slot, or arg0 register coming in. And we see... where is it? Where is it? arg0, or A0 gets moved to the S0 register. Really, it's just copying the pointer address into S0. And then S0 gets put in the A1 register, which is the second argument. And the first argument is A0. Oh, am I wrong? Oh, I'm reading the code that's being produced and not the code that was originally there. Thank you. Thank you. I still think player probably is coming out as a... variable. And that fixes that up. I was so wrong and so confident about my wrongness. Ordering issues. Move that code into the correct place. So I have this, I think, as an unsigned. It looks like it is a signed byte. But that doesn't give us what we want. We're adding 1. It's the... So the add outside. And then do a read. And it could be that this is being pulled out into a... originally it was being pulled out into a variable. So let's try that. So we'll say that this is a... Oh, it looks like maybe it's being checked and then incremented? That be? It is unsigned. I was wrong about the sign. SLTIU is going to do the unsigned. So are we only incrementing it if it's less than 4? No. Let's back that out. Again, am I looking at the wrong thing? So we're adding 1. Well, let's write it like M2C had it. Oh, that works. Okay. So the pre-decrement there should do the same thing. So when you do a post-decrement, the assignment happens first. And so you're getting the old value for timer, and then you're doing the increment, and then it's being checked. Doing a... Oh, let me just do the post-decrement here. Yeah. Pre versus post-decrement. My fault. 72. Animate entity. Looks like it's not. I don't think it does. Animate entity take a second param? I guess it would make sense that it did. So the mask that we're getting is not part of this instruction. The debug information just doesn't have enough information to tell you what it is part of. It looks like it's part of this. So we're masking this 3, but why? Let's try writing this like this. And it came back the same. So it looks like it's something to do with how the compiler is generating the instructions for this mask and not. I don't think this will make a difference, but it could be that these are nested. But I don't think that should really change anything. And when I say I don't think it really should change anything, I mean it absolutely will change everything about how this code is generated. GPads, also an array, so we want GPads 0. And then since we're dereferencing the first element, that becomes a dot. Oh, all right, so this looks like it. Let's go over and grab the PSP version. Thanks to the Decomp Me team for supporting middle click on the new button again. For like the week or so that didn't work, I was having a crisis. But now everything is better. So we're going to have to copy over our declaration for this. We're going to have to copy over the entity extension struct. So a little bit of additional setup is necessary. Not too bad. And we'll see how close we got. I find this method of adding entity extensions to be much easier to maintain between different versions of the game. I don't know why I didn't start doing that earlier. Ooh. This is not good at all. It looks like we have... Oh. I didn't choose the right preset. How about now? Much better. Much better. A good deal of time and effort goes into choosing the right compiler and right SDK. Interesting that I'm not familiar with the SN Systems SDK for the PSP, but SN Systems is who wrote the SDK for the PlayStation 1, the official SDK. It looks like we have an additional variable there, so that entity probably is reused. We don't have a second entity player variable. And let's go through a few things first. So we have an unnecessary mask there. That is because we're not checking explicitly against 0. Symbol differences, not too worried. A branch difference, let's jump down there and see. That's just because of our additional stack space. I'm going to fix that. So I think that is going to be a major contributor to the difference here. So our player is going into S1 versus S0, and my guess is that down here where we're doing allocate entity or alloc entity on 65, that's also going to be going into the same S0 register. Yeah. So instead of player, we just have entity. And fortunately, that variable is not overwritten before it's used down here. And that helped quite a bit. So that got our stack set up correctly. There's still going to be some differences, but not much. 45. No explicit check. You can click the arrow to jump to the ASM line. Where is this arrow roaming? I have my disclosure arrows. Those aren't the ones that I want. Oh, this arrow, really? No, not this one. This one? It's the arrow. It does nothing. That's for dig down deep. I believe you, but it's not working for me. 26 is where we were having problems before. In the compilation panel, yeah, these arrows in the gutter or following might be a Safari issue. Could be a Safari issue. Nobody using iOS can use that feature. One more mask issue down here. I was wondering if this params was going to be a not params. When I see params being used as an integer value, I usually... oh, so there's some... It looks like... What is button 80? Let's find button 80. There's some intrigue. Some behavior is... executed when button 80 is pressed. That looks like frame debug, but only if you're in case 16, which probably is impossible to get to. That's probably what's happening. So 80 is square. And case 16, is there any way for us to get to case 16? I don't think so. So yeah, this looks like it's part of debugging. And let's look at this pose timer code. So this could be explicit checks, pose timer equals 0. What does it look like here? This condition seems fine. This one doesn't. Let's look at the surrounding fields. It's possible that there's that we're not reading a word. There's a load immediate 4. Or maybe the code's just different here. What am I looking for? I'm looking for pose timing. And let's look at the decomp. So the two things that I think I would like, and maybe I should just contribute back and do it, is interesting. So we're pulling out pose as a variable, masking it. My guess is that GCC is seeing that this can never be true. No, it's a mod. Are we modding it? Dividing by 4? Dividing by 4. That's what it is. So this is... let's try mod form. And if that doesn't work, that looks like it worked. All right, so we added this error. The buttons are mapped to different constants. Symbol differences, but I think that is correct. And still just 20 differences between the two. So we have some symbol mapping to do between the PlayStation and the PSP. I want to look at the trail. I need to go add the entity extension. That's going to cause a recompile of everything. So I'll put that in there, and then we'll look at the trail while that's going. Let me grab that. All right, before I start compiling, I'm going to... Which one is this? This is PSP. Not the trail. And let's see. It's short. So we'll get that going. I'm pretty confident. I don't think that there's anything to worry about, but we'll start the trail. I think we should be able to get that done too. Short doesn't mean easy though. Very short. Very easy as well. Thank you, M2C. Don't make my life too easy. Renaming these variables is a creative endeavor, right? Getting rid of vars. Selecting the right types. More likely than not, this will not be in the correct order. Oh, there's a couple things here that are worth changing. So this is going to be a minus equals 2. And so we're matching that as well. Let's go grab the PSP version, which undoubtedly will have. We did get a clean build, by the way. There'll be some differences here. M2C's not that smart. It can't get this one on the first try. I double dog dare it. Yeah, that's what I thought, M2C. So, like I thought, there's going to be some of these are going to be out of order. So let's find the 3C. The one's coming first. The 4, 0, and it's like these two are down. And there we go. So yeah, just some minor ordering things. GCC don't care. It's gonna spray these in whatever order it wants. I don't know why. I don't necessarily see any great advantage to rewriting the order unless it can pack smaller things together. So like two shorts, pack them into a word and write it that way. I don't see the advantage of a lot of the reordering it does. But this should work over here as well. There's not going to be any difference there. I'm not sure if this is the same initializer. C54, we'll see. It's different. So the PSP one will have a... Oh, it actually doesn't, because Project Oblivion was kind enough to map all of the inits to the same name. This should actually work just fine on the PSP version. Let's do that. Make sure it works here. Yep, and that works. Roaming says, is there caching things like writing from the lowest memory to the first has the best chance of loading? I don't think that there is any cache like that on the PlayStation. There could be in MIPS of that era, but they chose to remove that cache for the scratch pad. So I don't think there is. But maybe GCC doesn't know that. So Sony took GCC, they patched it for what they wanted, probably to support GTE and all that other stuff. So it's possible that the GCC optimizer doesn't know that. So that's a good point. So then the optimizer is going to look and say, what does that layout look like in memory? Let's do it in order so that if there is a page cache, that we're not reloading those pages in. That's fair. I like it. I'm not going to go through and map the PlayStation stuff. Oh, my capture has failed. Weird. Let me fix that. That hasn't happened in a while. But the skull trail function is working on both. There's only a handful of these, so the init should be the same. So really we would just have to map these other two. Let's do that. Might as well. What time is it? 12? You can get that done before like 12:45. So we need to find where the memory is for the PSP version. And then we can get rid of that file too. So let's go back over here, figure out where that memory is. So we don't need the init. What we need is these two arrays, which are down at animate entity on 72. What I was saying, what I want is a way to jump from this line 72 to where the assembly is, because you can go the other direction. You can go from 72 here backwards. So like if it had another column, I guess it would be the offset, but that might be weird and noisy, and most people using a decompilation tool wouldn't know what that was. Hey, does it? Good to have you back. Music died too. No, usually when things die, it's there we go. Something will happen with, yeah, it died again. The capture daemon on Mac OS, like that capture daemon will crash, and then everything needs to be restarted, and it's happened again. And I need to go through and update all the captures. So, okay. So here's where our original was. This is our PSP variable. Oh, this has to be restarted as well. And this has been working very well in the last couple of months, so I'm not sure what has started this again. I did just update this morning. So we're looking at PSP STNZ1 beta. So we have to do the same thing here as we did for the PlayStation. Determine how much of this should be part of the Phantom Skull. It looks like the start of this. So the start of 253C8. And it's going to end at 253F8. And this is just changing the splits, so I don't expect anything to fail there. And now we should be able to pull that data in. We'll do it on the PlayStation side. I'm going to do it on the PlayStation side, but I'm going to grab the data from the PSP, and that'll just give me some confidence that the data is the same. I think that there's only one trailing byte at the end, but we'll see. And Vim is stupid about block copies. Does not insert new lines. That might be necessary for the block copy. I don't think this last set of zeros is there. So I think that's fine, and then we'll grab these as well. To me, these look like they're going to be PlayStation style real numbers, but I'm not sure. So let's see if this works. We're going to update a bunch of stuff I can close. The data here for Phantom Skull to use the C file. So again, this is taking the data from the PSP, but using it on the PlayStation 1 because I think the PlayStation 1 is going to have the same data, and it didn't work. And let's see if there's an obvious reason why. Not immediately obvious. Okay, so let me not do that. Let me take the PlayStation data. Phantom Skull. Oh, did I take the wrong? No, that looks right. See if it's about the same amount of data. I do a... Oh, that's weird. Make up your mind, Vim. Try it again. It may be that there were 2 zeros at the end, and I was just too eager to get rid of that data. Oh, that's what it was. Can you spot the error before I do? I missed the commas at the end. All right, so this is, again, the PSP data. So this data is fine. What we don't have is the symbols. We don't need the symbols because they're static. So let's get this from the C file. And what we're going to do is just take all this data as well as the function. And we know the function matches, or we have a pretty good inclination that the function matches. And let's see if it worked. And it worked. So now these files I would expect to be the same. The PSP version and the PlayStation version, except for the header file. So we can get rid of the PSP version now. So we change the prefix to use the PlayStation prefix. And that's all there is to it. And then we get rid of our PSP-C file and build again, and we should be good. Ooh, yeah. We're not, sorry about that. Not working. Ugh. Oh, apologies. We got rid of the PSP version of the file. So all of this is set up now, and another file that's deduped between both versions of the game. There's some things here that still need to be cleaned up. The acceleration, like I said, it looks like based on these values and then the way that it is shifted, that it's being used, the way that the velocity is being shifted, it looks like it's being used as a PlayStation format fixed point value, which is a little different. So this would be 0.25. This would be 0.5. And what's halfway between, I guess, 0.375? And then 625. Some of those are right. No. No, 1/8. I'm sorry. It starts at 1/8. No, this should be 1/16. No, sorry, 4/16, which should be a quarter. What? Try it one more time. Yeah, okay, I'm not sure what I screwed up. A little strange that these are in that form. Yeah, I don't know what did I do last time. Oh well. Oh, guess what? It's not updating again. Sorry about that. So all I was doing was changing these from the hex values to what their equivalent float is. And the reason I think that they're that type is because of the shift by C and the scale that they're in. This velocity then becomes a float 18. Or 180. Well, maybe it's 180. And that seems too high. And also wrong. I'm missing something. Oh, it's not 18. It's 24. 24 actually is not seem too high. I can go from hex to decimal. Just odd. Most of the SOTN code that doesn't interact directly with the SDK doesn't use that form. So it's unclear to me why it's doing it here. And maybe it's not, maybe they are fixed, but then you have to shift everything over by another 8 bits. Thank you, roaming. So not exactly sure what's going on there. Another interesting piece, and this is inconsistent between different parts of the game as well, is we have just an integer value here. Even on the PSP version of the game, when that should be using the global value instead. So we have to use the enum directly here, which on the PSP isn't common. So this might have been given to the intern or somebody who understood rendering, but maybe not the other conventions of the game, or maybe nothing needed to change here. And so they just shipped the code as it was. Strange, odd. It would be nice to rename these inits, but I think I'll do that later. So we got some stuff done. That was nice. Fix my captures. Go to soten.z.dev to learn more. I appreciate everybody showing up to chat every day, and enjoy doing this with you all. See you tomorrow. Adios.